story. Looks like we're still waiting for Fanny. So um, we're going to start with how about what did we decide? Leanne?
Sure.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for stepping up to the plate.
I'll go for it.
And I just met and talked to these lovely ladies tonight, and delightful. And I'm just so impressed with how articulate, their knowledge of fly fishing. So Leanne is a certified casting instructor, one of my goals. And I'm just so proud to say that, because we need more women casting instructors. So if you need a mentor, there's Leanne. She also graduated the Joan Wolf Fly Fishing School. Also very jealous about that, for instructors. And she's on the Winston Pro staff. She's the vice president of education for the Southwest Council. And guess what, guys? She is going to be, I think we discovered this today, the first women president of that council, right, Leanne?
Yes, that's what I'm told.
I'm so
That's what I was told.
I'm so proud. Yeah, and so you know, she has a lot of casting experience. She's a great teacher. She's a great speaker. She's involved. I just really enjoyed her PowerPoint program earlier today. I am going to remove myself and highlight you, Leanne.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I wanted to say I'm very thrilled to be with all of you tonight. It was kind of a weird day for me today. My email got hacked, and in LA, we're kind of the center of coronavirus. So it's just really a nice treat to be here with you. Tonight, I want to talk a little bit about passing it on. But before I get started, I wanted to share a little bit about myself. Let me get the screen up there. Okay.
Good.
There we go. So my topic tonight is going to be passing it on, but as I said, I want to share a little bit about myself. I was raised in a fly fishing family. My parents fly fished, my grandparents fly fished, and all of our vacations revolved around fly fishing. Pretty much every year we had a choice of fly fishing for a vacation or fly fishing. So it was a big part of my life growing up. I can't remember a time when it hasn't been a part of my life. There's a quote I really like by John Burroughs. It goes like this: trout streams gurgle about the roots of my family tree. And it really expresses my life growing up with my parents and my grandparents. As a child, I'd follow my dad along the stream, and so that I wouldn't fall in, he would tie a rope around my waist to keep me from getting into trouble. I spent most of the time chasing frogs, playing in the mud, doing kid stuff, but he was always really patient with me. And as I grew, so did my love for fly fishing and the outdoors. My mom was also a really accomplished fly fisher. She tied flies professionally for all the mountain states, Idaho, Montana, Utah. She sold them to all the fly shops in the area, which when you look back at the era she was raised in, was pretty remarkable that she was a woman doing that. Growing up, I always just thought that since my mom fly fished, that women fly fished, men and women. And it wasn't until later in life when I joined a club and I looked around and went, where are the women? So I was fortunate to have her as a role model, and I never thought it was unusual to fly fish. I learned going along the streams with my dad and my mom so much more than fly fishing. I learned an appreciation for the outdoors and a desire to preserve it. It just became a part of the fabric of my life, the outdoors and the fly fishing. And a lot of people helped me along the way. of all, older, younger, of every age. And they're all kind of a part of who I am today and my fly fishing experience. And they were always so generous with their time. And that's why I really think it's important to pass it on. And thus my topic for today, passing it on. When I think about passing it on, the first question that kind of pops into my head is, why is it so important? We all know that fly fishing is a great thing to share. But as I put these slides together, I was struck with the joy associated with fly fishing. I noticed all the smiles, and then I remember the number of times that I've heard a scream from down the stream when somebody caught their first fish, a really big fish, or really any fish. And so fly fishing is a lot of fun, but it's also so important to nurture the next generation of fly fishers. The future of fly fishing depends on it, and also our environment depends on it. I think Leigh Wolf said it best when he said, when we teach a person to fly fish, we have just created a conservationalist. This young lady here, it was the first fish she ever caught. It was on our beginner's trip. And then the next slide I really loved. She had to kiss the fish before she let it go. And I just loved that she was so excited. And I really believe that experiences like this create advocates forever for our fish, our streams, and for our environment. I believe that connecting youth to fly fishing ensures that our waterways are protected and that our industry is thriving. And that when they connect to the outdoors and beauty, they want to preserve it. Another reason I think it's so important to pass fly fishing on is that fly fishing is so much more than fly fishing. Fly fishing touches lives in ways that we can't fully understand sometimes or express. It's not only about the connection to nature, but to one another that's so powerful. When I ask people about their favorite fly fishing experience, it always revolves around people some way. I've been doing a series of interviews, and it's been interesting to me how it always comes back to the connections we make with other people, a daughter, a friend, a wounded warrior, a fellow survivor. And when I think about myself and look back on my experiences, it's always the people that resonate with my soul. One of the great gifts of fly fishing is the people we encounter along the way, for sure. A few years back, I was fortunate to go fly fishing with some veterans that were suffering from PTSD. And when I was helping this one young man on the stream, I just noticed that he was standing there staring at the sky. And I approached him and I said, "Are you okay? Is everything okay?" And he said, "Yes, everything's fine. When I'm fly fishing, I can't think about anything else. I feel like I can breathe. I feel like I'm at peace." And I just thought that was such a powerful statement about the restorative and healing nature of fly fishing. Being in nature is really good for the soul. I wanted to take a few moments to kind of highlight a lot of the programs that are doing great work and passing it on. There's a number of them. There's Trout in the Classroom, Outward Bound Adventures, Casting for Recovery, Project Healing Waters, and of course, the local clubs are doing really great work all the time. In 2020, it's the fourth year that Southwest Council of Fly Fishers International has worked alongside Pasadena Casting Club to sponsor a youth fly fishing program. And in this program, we've reached over 600 local youngsters. And these are youngsters from an urban environment. So I think that's really remarkable and really a neat statistic that we were able to do that. Another program that is near and dear to my soul, and it's a national program, but we also do it here locally, is Trout in the Classroom. And for those of you that don't know about Trout in the Classroom, it's an environmental education program for students in grades K through 12. And I love working with the kids. I like the poster up there. They say the trout are coming, you know, such a kid thing is so neat. What they do is the students raise trout eggs from fry. They monitor tank water quality, engage in stream habitat study, and they learn to appreciate water resources, so important. And they begin to foster a conservation ethic. And then they grow to understand the ecosystems. And if you look over there again at the kids, they're smiling and they have their little fish. And most of the programs end the year end by releasing their trout into a state approved stream or water system. And they work together with the Fish and Wildlife and the teachers to accomplish all that. So it's just a really great program. And they do a great job of teaching kids about streams and rivers and fish. A program that we do here locally that I'm very proud of is called Outward Bound Adventures. And they started a Learn to Fly Fish program. Some of you may not have heard of this because it's a more of a local program, but it was started in 1962 in Pasadena by 4 educators who believed that students would benefit from time spent in nature. So Pasadena Casting Club alongside Southwest Council, Fly Fishers International, it's a mouthful, have formed a working partnership with Outward Bound Adventures. We call it OBA. The partnership consists of a Learn to Fly Fish clinic and a local fly fishing outing. And then each summer, these young participants get to go to the Golden Trout Wilderness and fish for golden trout. They also do some local fishing trips to ponds and things. But the last thing is they get to go catch a golden trout and release it, again, connecting them to the environment. This is another pass it on group that's really near and dear to my heart. Most of us have been impacted by breast cancer in some way, either a family member or a spouse or a sister. We usually know somebody that has been impacted by it. The mission for Casting for Recovery is, again, to enhance the quality of life of women through fly fishing. It combines breast cancer education with peer support. So you might ask, why fly fishing and breast cancer? On a physical level, the motion of fly casting is very healing for the muscles in the area when they've had radiation or some kind of surgery. But almost more importantly, on an emotional level, it gives the ladies a place where they can experience a new activity in a safe environment and be around a supportive group of peers. So just another really great program. Another wonderful program that passes it on all the time is Project Healing Waters. Well, this is also a national program, but we also do a lot of programs with it here locally. And they're dedicated to the physical and emotional rehabilitation of disabled active military personnel and disabled veterans. And again, they use fly fishing to help these veterans recover from sometimes physical, but often mental problems from post-traumatic stress. And it really focuses on the healing effects of fly fishing. And if you look to the right, this young lady in the picture was overseas. She was unfortunately got shrapnel in her head, and she became involved with Project Healing Waters and then started volunteering and teaching classes and just helping out. And so it's a great program, and it's unique in that it's an ongoing relationship that they have with the veterans. It's much more than a one-time fishing trip. They're there to support and help veterans um, for years to come, as long as they need, as long as they want to. And often after people have experienced, they go on to become leaders within Project Healing Waters. I wanted to read a quote by retired Captain Kimberly Smith because I think she explains it way better than I could ever say it. Sometimes I find myself speechless when people ask me what Project Healing Waters has done for me, because words are untouchable to what this project has given me. Project Healing Waters saved my life, and I'm completely serious about that. That's why I want to do everything I can to give back, even though I'm in recovery myself. I just think that's a beautiful and very powerful statement about the healing power of fly fishing and why it's important to share it with children and adults of all ages. There's a lot of national programs that are doing a great job at passing it on. You've probably heard of some of them you may not have. Trout Unlimited has a number of programs. They have one called Headwaters Program. We talked about trout in the classroom. FFI Women Connect here tonight, it connects women, connects women, and it gives them a safe environment where they can learn around other women. And we like men, but sometimes women like to, get together and they just interact a little differently. So it's really fun and a great growing part of FFI. Fly Fishers International does a number of youth programs. There's a program called Mayfly Project, which is a mentoring program. They work with kids that are in foster care and take them out fly fishing. And it just helps them deal with a lot of this stuff that they're going through. Cast Hope is another mentoring program that we have here in California and Nevada. And then of course, Project Healing Waters, and there's many, many more. I could go on forever. These are just some pictures of some of the programs and the kids that were involved. Up at the top right is Pasadena Casting Club, and those are some of the kids that were in the Outward Bound program. So how do you pass it on, or how do you get involved? Well, number one, and probably the most important thing, is that you don't have to be an expert to pass it on. You just have to want to share, no matter what your skill level or your time restraints. That's it. You can be any age. Tonight, we have Willow, who's 15 and doing a lot to pass it on, and then all the way up the spectrum to any age. And most of these programs are always looking for volunteers. So you can always, if you don't want to start your own project, which some people do, but you can partner with an organization that already is up and running. It can also be as simple as teaching a family member, teaching at your local club when they need help, or just when you're on the stream, helping somebody that needs a little help. I really believe that all of these things add up to something much bigger in the long run. I guarantee if you can chisel away a little bit of time to give back here and there, whether you just have a couple hours, one day per month, maybe even one day per year, that your time and efforts will positively impact the lives of the people you're helping, but also more important, well, just as important, not more important, the environment. Because again, when we care about something, we want to protect it. So I'd like to encourage all of you to pass it on and help others learn about fly fishing and protect our fish, hopefully for the future generations to come. And that's it. Any questions?
Thank you, Leanne. So
Have to
we'll
get the
take
screen
down
share.
your PowerPoint, and then we'll spotlight you. And I just loved hearing about your conservation ideas, how to pass it on ideas, your passion for passing it on. I'm going to give a brief commercial, and we told Leanne about this so she's going to be recruited to help us with it.
Yeah,
In
yeah,
June,
I
Fly
know.
Fishers International Women Connect is going to has decided that we're going to make it June is Women in Fly Fishing Month. And one of the big promotions we're going to do in June, Women in Fly Fishing Month, is Take a Child Fishing.
Uh,
And so everybody out there, when June comes, and help us promote and take a child fishing. And so let me ask you, Leanne, if you take a child fishing, what advice would you give if they've never held anything in
yeah.
their hand, if they've never seen a fly? You talked about some city kids who probably never even been on a pond. What do you suggest we do?
Yeah, they haven't. Well, I think of course, it's important to be patient and realize they're going to get tangled. A lot of times when we're working with the kids, I think we spend probably 80% of the time undoing tangles and tying on flies. And also just to make it fun for them and not make it a pressure thing. And as much as possible, ensure you take them somewhere where they're going to have success catching a fish. So you don't want to take them to a spring creek or something where it's hard. So that's another thing that helps.
Let's see. I don't see any Q&As yet. And how about if I wanted to donate time to one of these organizations, where do I start? How do you go online and Google fly fishing organizations? If you had somebody that said, I retired, I could give some time, where would you send people?
Well, in Southern California, in our area, the Southwest Council is involved with all of these organizations, but also they all have websites where you can go and volunteer or even donate if you want to. So that's one route.
And if we wanted to find, like you mentioned, Casting for Recovery,
Yes.
um,
Yeah.
like a list, your local organization should have it.
Yes.
Contact any of us, we should have it.
Yes. Yeah. We
And,
would have it, or we could for sure steer you in the right direction. Most these organizations are national programs, although they do local programs. So they have it pretty dialed in how to get you in contact with the correct person in your area.
and just one last question: if someone wanted to volunteer their time, where would you send them a focus? Just simply take a child out, make it a fly fishing focus, show them some bugs. Where would you start?
What are you asking? Where they what
Yeah, like
organization?
I think I'm going to help out. What do I do? Where
Oh,
would
okay. Well, first of all, I would say contact the organization and then contact the local chapter,
okay?
and then give that person, shoot them out an email or sometimes a call. And they're always looking for people to help with all of these things. And we're always looking for people to help teach fly tying, for instance, entomology, any of those things. And like I said, but you don't have to be an expert either. You can just want to be there to help untangle lines. So that's really helpful. So I hope that answers the
Yep.
question.
Yep.
Yeah.
And, we do have one question. Uh, what discussions are happening? I'm sure with the groups and as we try to teach, and in regard to COVID and keeping safe. Thank you, Teresa, for that question.
Oh, as far as keeping safe.
Yeah, yeah. And COVID, what can we do to volunteer and pass it forward when obviously we can't take a group of kids
Yeah,
out and have their parents? And so what's a
that's
suggestion there, and what do we do to keep safe?
That's a really, really good question. We've dialed stuff back, and most of our stuff has been online at this point with like the Zoom. If you do, right now, I mean, we just found out today in LA that we're kind of the epicenter of COVID. So we're pretty much not doing anything in person at this point. But if you do, we're wearing masks and staying 6 feet apart, and it's changed how we do things, and it will change things for a while, I believe. But we're doing the best we can to adjust by doing things on the internet and online.
Thank you. Good question. Hopefully by June, we can
Hopefully,
get out fishing.
yeah. I mean,
We'll
it's,
send them all to Fanny because you'll have the shot by then, Fanny.
I know. I don't know. I'll probably be last to get the
Yeah.
shot. I don't know.
Thank you again, Leanne. And again, if you think of a question for any of our speakers, put it up at the end. We'll have a little Q&A time. So let me spotlight Fanny. Whoop, there we go.
Hello.
Oh, there, I was worried you were muted. Thank you for coming on tonight. And I have to tell you, Fanny is, if she wasn't my hero before today, she's my hero. I heard her story today. Let me tell you, and I know you're never supposed to mention a woman's age, so we'll be like, there's not an 8 in her age, there's a 9. And if I could be as bright and as articulate and as energetic and as fabulous looking as Fanny when I am that age, that's my goal in life.
Oh my gosh.
She has a great story. She was married to Mel Krieger, which many of you will recognize, but in her own way, who do you think was the woman that did the planning and ran the classes and planned the trips and started a California Women's Fly Fishing Club? She's the founder of International Women Fly Fishers, and she met two of us that are on the board that she started, and so it was a pleasure. And what a story she has, not only fly fishing, but a good reminder of her life story. And a lot of this generation maybe doesn't realize what happened. And so, Fanny, I would love to turn it over and tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your story. And if I have a clarification question, I'll ask. Otherwise, we'll do the questions to the end. So welcome and thank you for getting on tonight.
Thank you, Sandy. Thank you very much. And thank you, Leanne, also for your presentation. I really enjoyed it. You did a good job. Well, we'll start with the age. I am 91 years old, although I don't feel it. I feel like I'm about 50, maybe. 50? Well, somewhere around there. But I am in good health, and mentally I'm okay. So I want to talk about fly fishing. First, I will tell you, I was born and raised in France, and I came to this country when I was 17 years old by myself after the war. I did lose my parents and my little sister during the war. So I came by myself because a very close friend of mine from France had come to the United States just before the war started. And so after the war, she wrote and asked what had happened to me during the war, and I told her. And so they made papers for me to come to America. And when I left, I was in school there. I lived in a boarding school. When I left, all my friends said, "Oh, you're so lucky to go to America. You're going to marry the king of chewing gum." Chewing gum. I didn't even chew the gum. But anyway, so I did not find the king of chewing gum, but I did find a king. fly fishing. Fly fishing. I said, what is that? I had no idea what fly fishing was all about. And Mel, who was my king of chewing gum, not really, because he never chewed gum, but of fly fishing anyway, for me, decided to take me fly fishing. And on my first date, he sat in the boat. We lived in Houston then. So we went in the Galveston Bay. He sat in the boat, gave me a rod. And every time I put the line in the water, I caught a fish. I said, this is great. I love it. I want more. And so that's how we started the connection being made. Then we moved to California. Mel wanted to be in California. We moved to San Francisco. And I became close friends with one gal who was a fly fisher. And over dinner and a few glasses of wine, I have to admit that, we started to talk about women in fly fishing. Are there other women besides the two of us crazy who do fly fish? How about if we had a club of women fly fishers? And Susan, at that time she was Susan Williams, Susan and I sent out an invitation to start a women fly fishing club. And I thought, if 6 women come, then we'll have a club. We'll start a club. And it was a meeting at my house, and 22 women came. I couldn't believe it. And everybody said, yes, let's have a club. Let's do outings. Let's go fishing. And this was the start of the Golden West Women Fly Fisher. Like I said, we started with 22 women, and one created a charter, and another one made a logo and designed it was incredible, the enthusiasm. And I think it's because there was only one fly fishing club for women in the United States, and that was in New York. And it was not very well known. And the gals here in California, Northern California, were very excited to have found sisterhood of sort. So we met once a month at my house, and somebody brought dinners, and we organized outings. And that was the best part. There were always 8, 10, 12 women and their little kids going fishing. Then I thought, maybe there are other clubs of women fly fishers out of the country, somewhere else. So we had the first International Women Fly Fishing gathering in San Francisco. Oh my God. Okay. In San Francisco. On.
Call from Sharon.
Yeah, I know. Oh.
Fanny is always a popular lady. I mean.
Okay, that's not too bad. That's my daughter. I can do that to her. And I call her back. Anyway, so the Golden West Women Fly Fisher, which is what we called our club, was started. Then we had the International Woman Fly Fisher. That came about 10 years later. And it was incredibly exciting because we had women who came from Germany. We had 6 gals who came from Japan. We had a couple that came from England. And we had Joan Wolfe, who came and spoke to us at the big dinner on the last night. And she said, and I quote, "I have waited all my life for this to happen. Women fly fisher getting together. She was very supportive, and she was very active with us. So what else can I tell you? Did I mention my name? Did I mention my age?
You
Yes.
did. So impressive. So tell us a little bit about what it was like coming as a little bit of your history that you told us this afternoon.
Okay.
And then, and you said that, getting into fly fishing and meeting the people was a lot of what made you feel welcome here and welcome in the groups. And can you expand on that a little bit?
Okay. Well, I came to the United States after the war in Europe. I was 17 years old. I came by myself after living in France during the war in a boarding school and doing all that I could to not be caught by the Germans. My parents had been taken, and my little sister, 9 years old, had been taken by the Germans to a concentration camp and didn't come back. But I had a very close friend in France before the war. She and her parents moved to New York before the war. So she wrote to me after the war asking what happened and how did I survive. And when she found out, her mother made papers for me to come to America. So at 17, I traveled from France to New York on a very fancy boat, or I thought it was very fancy, but I'm sure it was. And I was just like a country pumpkin. The little town where I lived had a population of 15,000 people. Of course, I knew just a few of them. And here I was on this very fancy ship with all these very fancy people, and arriving in New York, seeing the Statue of Liberty and seeing all these yellow cars. And I didn't know then that all the yellow cars in New York were taxis. And it just, the whole thing was unbelievable, surprising to me. Anyway, after living in New York for 5 years, where I worked for the French airline, I moved to Houston. And that's where I met Mel, who I met him at a party, and he told me about fly fishing, that he was a fly fisherman. I had no idea what that was. I thought he was catching flies. And I discovered later on, I'm not the only one to have thought that. Mm-hmm. He had a friend who went to Russia. And when he told that friend told the people he met in Russia that he was a fly fisherman, they all say, "What do you do with the flies that you catch?" They all thought he was catching flies. So did I when I first met Mel. But anyway, he was nice enough to decide that he would take me fly fishing one day so that I could see what it was all about. And every time I put a line in the water with the rod that he had handed me, I caught a fish. It was so exciting. I couldn't contain myself. And I said, "I like this. I want more of this." He said, "Okay, we'll go fly fishing again." And that's how I started my relationship with Mel.
We have a couple questions or one comment. Sonia says, Fanny has taught children all over, especially Argentina. And I hope she mentions it because not only is she a huge influence here, she said she's influenced whole countries. So maybe you can talk about that and then tell us a little bit about how, if you were to take a child fishing, what would you do?
Well, the first thing I would do probably is give them a video that I produced, which was of my 4 grandchildren that I was teaching to how to fly fish. That video did very well. And I don't know how good it is or is not, but the kids liked it. So that was the important thing. And my grandchildren, the 4 of them, were very nice about doing the video. My connection with Argentina is a very close one. I have gone to Argentina since the early 70s, probably 25, 30 times. First with Mel, and then I've gone back without Mel. And we always went with people, with a group of people. So it was a very social happening. And Argentines are very warm people, you know, they're Latin people. So they're very warm and they really embraced us. And we just loved going there. We went for many years. I can't even tell you how many. We went every year. And we spent 2 or 3 weeks fishing all over the country there. So yes, Mel was very well known. I mean, walking down the street in Buenos Aires, there was always somebody that would stop him and say, "Oh, Mel Krieger, hello." So I've gone back on my own, and hopefully I will go again when things allow it. I have enjoyed the connection with the children. I have enjoyed the connection with other people. Everybody brings something to you when you get connected. And especially if you're sharing something as important as fly fishing. They want to know what you know. I want to know what they know. I started the Golden West Women Fly Fisher, and we've had the program with the women veteran wounded soldiers, and it was wonderful. We took them fishing, and I gave them some casting lesson at the casting pool. It was very rewarding. I don't know what I would have found if I hadn't found fly fishing, but I have loved it. I often have said that I don't know anything about the word just went out of my head. But that's what I imagine wanting to relax, wanting to meditate. That's what I imagine meditate is like. And it always takes you to beautiful countryside. The rivers are usually in the mountain areas. And the connection with people who fly fish is also a very important factor for me. So the only thing I can say is, if you have never fly fished, you should try. There are many people who love to teach. There are many videos that you can learn from. And even if you just go out to a casting pole or to a river and start with a rod, you have to have a rod, but you start using the rod, somebody's going to come over and say, "Can I show you how to do that?" Whether you need it or not, somebody always wants to help.
Yep.
And that's what I like about my connection to fly fishing, is the people and the friends that I've made over the years. And the fact that it really engages you. Leanne said it very well, you know, it really engages all of your senses into it. That's why I say sometimes, I imagine that that's what yoga is.
Yoga.
Meditation. Because when I'm out on the river, I totally get rid of whatever may be bothering me. I get very immersed in the solitude, the beauty of the mountains and the rivers, and the feel of the water. I like that.
Mhm.
I like being in waders in the water. And many a time I've been told, come back to land. Don't go out so far. And I'm careful. I'm because I'm a scary cat.
Mhm.
But I like the feel of water and the look of water. And of course, catching a fish is very exciting too.
That's the bonus. Thank you so much, Fanny. Fascinating story. Your love for not conservation. It's a good segue into Willow, because you talk about the environment. You talk about your love of, even if you don't catch a fish, you're in the water and you're on the water, and that spans all generations. And I could see it in your face. I could hear it in your voice, and you've shared it, and you've left a legacy that moves on with that. I so appreciate it. We have a couple questions. We'll answer them at the end after Willow, and so there we go. I need to Willow. You need to unmute. Okay, let's get her on. So this lovely lady, who I also met today, 15-year-old from Tennessee. She has a story to share. And, you know, if you already don't love the environment and the outdoors and fly fishing after hearing our first two speakers, if all of her friends aren't outside and off their Xboxes, I don't know, because she's dynamic, she's articulate. I just so enjoyed hearing what you have to say, and I know everybody out there will too. Willow. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about your story and get us excited.
All right, I can do that. So, like she said, I'm Willow Rutter. I'm 15 years old and I live in Townsend, Tennessee. I live about 10 minutes from the Great Smoky Mountains National Park entrance. And I've grown up with fly fishing, and it's been a part of my life for as long as I remember, and I can't imagine life without it. My parents are fly fishing guides. They own their own business, are in our fly fishing, and I've been out fishing and traveling with them since pretty much day one. I just absolutely love the outdoors. Fly fishing has definitely brought me into that 100%. My parents loved the outdoors before they ever got into fly fishing, but I definitely think fly fishing being everything to us has definitely brought me even more into that. Being outside has always been my peaceful place. I mean, even my name is Willow, like that's multiple different types of plants, but it literally means thrives by water, and that's in every aspect to me. So a lot of people always ask me where I like to fish, all that type of stuff. Well, I live right here by the Great Smoky Mountains, so I'm there quite a bit. Every year, I think I've only missed this trip like maybe 2 or 3 times, but every year since literally the year I was born, like 10 weeks old, I've gone out west to Idaho and Montana and spent anywhere from a week to almost a month just going out and camping and just traveling around, experiencing the different environments. I absolutely love it out there, and it's so much like the Smokies and nothing like it at the exact same time, and it's wonderful. I really love it. You know, me and my brother actually are very competitive with fishing. There's a spot that we go fishing every year in Idaho, Coffee Pot Gorge, I believe is what it's called. I know it's Coffee Pot anyway. But me and my brother actually like fight over one spot. There was one year a couple years ago that I just crushed it. I got a whole bunch, just cast after cast, and my brother was upset that he didn't get his turn, and we promised him he could fish there the next year, and then it didn't do as well the next year. But so we have that competition in our house, in our family every year whenever we go and visit that spot, of who's going to get that spot and if it's going to do just as good. Yeah. And so my absolute main thing, no matter what, is just to get everyone else excited. Kids, women, anyone in general, honestly, about being outside and being excited about protecting the environment that we have, and making sure that, you know, my children can have it, and grandchildren, and everyone forever and ever can have the same experience that we're having right now, and maybe just as clean, if not cleaner, if we do a good enough job. So like one big thing that I really feel like is educating kids my age and younger and older even. I'm only a sophomore in high school. And Leanne actually talked about this a little bit, the Trout in the Classroom program. So my mom actually became an ambassador for Trout in the Classroom when I was about 8 years old. And we got our first trout in the classroom at my elementary school. And it was amazing because, I mean, I have always found aspects, just how to be a conservationist and how to keep things clean and how to care for the outdoors has just been common knowledge. Well, I thought it was common knowledge forever. And the more that I'm seeing kids my age learn about it, I'm finding out that it's not. And now I'm trying really hard to get everyone to learn about it. A really good example is when I was 8 or 9, one of the first years that we had trout in the classroom at my school, there was a park ranger that came in, and we did kind of a big field trip thing when we actually released our trout. And she had this bucket, just like, I don't know, a white bucket, and it had just some clear tap water in it. And everyone in the classroom, I think there was about 15 of us, each had like almost like a little film canister, about 2 inches tall, you know, not very big. And it had something in it, and it had a label. And everybody's label was a little bit different. I think mine even actually said fly fisherman, and mine had some fly line in it. And somebody else had leaves, and somebody else had motor oil, and just random junk, really. And so park ranger had this story and was talking about just random people, of course it's a story, that lived in Townsend. My town has a river that runs through it, and of course it is connected to the national park. And so it was like Timmy and his dad are working on his dad's car, and they're changing out the oil, and some of it gets on the ground, and they have some leftover, and so they just dump it out. And it rains and it goes into the river. And then farmer so-and-so doesn't do a good enough job of keeping cow manure or the cows away from the river. So fertilizer and cow manure gets into the water. So somebody dumps their stuff into the bucket. And so as all of us go around and we're dumping or just gunk into this bucket, there's probably a couple gallons of water. It's just gross. And so then the park ranger says, okay, everybody gather around this bucket and look at it. What do you think about that water? And we're all like, it's really blech, it's brown, it's icky. And she said, do you want to put your hand in there? And one kid was like, absolutely not, you know? And she said, well, what if I told you that everything that we just put in this bucket goes into our river every day, and that's the water that you swim in the summer, and that's also the same water that you take a shower in, and it's also the water that you drink. And they were just like, oh my gosh, no. And she's like, well, it kind of is. All that stuff goes into the river in Townsend pretty consistently, and if we don't do anything about keeping it out, then that's what we're filtering out of your water. And a lot of kids kind of talked about that for a while, and they were just like, oh my gosh, that's so gross, you know. And I didn't even know I did that all the time. I just throw stuff in there. And they're like, and now I definitely will never do that again. And it was amazing just to see that light bulb come on. And still quite a bit, I see that light bulb come on. We just got another tank at my high school now that's being used for different biology classes and like the environmentalist club and stuff like that. And it's just been an amazing experience really to have. And you know, one big thing that y'all have been talking about is what to do if you bring a kid on the water. Well, I mean, I've been the kid on the water since forever. I mean, I still am. So, I mean, one big thing that, you know, I go to things with my parents all the time, and there'll be another adult, and they're like, oh, I wish I could get my kid out on the water with me, but he won't get off the Xbox, or won't put down his phone, or we tried it and he just hated it, you know, whatever. And, you know, they usually talk about it, and I was like, you know, that might not have been that fun. Because usually it sounds like adults try to put a whole lot of pressure on getting out and catching the fish and doing it right and learning the name of the knot and learning this and this and this all in one day. And that's, well, that might sound fun or like a fun educational experience to the parent. The kid doesn't always think that that's fantastic. But what would be fantastic is just going out and saying, oh, did you ever notice like this really cool bug that's just like hanging out, and oh, look at these pretty flowers, the cool plants, and then maybe you catch a fish. And also, hey, I brought your favorite sandwich for lunch, or you want to get ice cream afterwards. Just kind of that random fun stuff that kids are into, no matter their age. Like, I've loved to read forever, right? And when I was little, my parents would literally bring a full like little crate of like easy learning to read books with them on the boat with me when I was like 3 and 4. And so if I got bored sitting on the boat, hand me a book, and I was great. And I was happy to have my book and like a little thing of M&Ms, and I was happy. It's really simple. It doesn't have to be so pressured on the fishing as much as making sure that they just have a good time. And no matter what, if they think back to, oh, well, it was only a good time because I had M&Ms, they're not going to think that. They're going to think, oh, it was a really fun day with mom and dad. And that's all that really matters. As long as it's a good memory, they're going to want to go and do it again. And that's just a consistent thing to always do, and constant. And so growing up in fly fishing, I've actually gotten to do a whole bunch of really fun stuff and meet a lot of really cool people. You know, I've traveled to Idaho and Montana and Wyoming almost annually for like 15 years. I mean, that's how long I've been alive. I've said that. And I've traveled to Maine a couple of times. We got to go, we actually got to travel around Katahdin Woods and Waters National Monument before it was even a national monument. We made friends with the people that were establishing it. And we got to fish it, and it was a really awesome time. And that's really great. Actually, a really cool thing that is really kind of bizarre that not many people get to talk about is when I was 10, Good Morning America was doing a anniversary thing for the national parks, and when they came to Great Smoky Mountains, they called like the ranger station or something. It was like, hey, what's some cool stuff to do in the park, and who do I call? Well, the rangers directed them to my parents, and so my mom and me and my brother got to go fishing with Jesse Palmer, which he is now a sports announcer, and he was on Good Morning America then. He was on The Bachelor, and played for the Florida Gators and the New York Giants. So I didn't know anything about him. I'm not a big sports person. I don't watch The Bachelor, but a lot of people thought that was really cool, and that was a really fun experience, getting to be out on the water and some dude that's like triple my size not having a clue how to do what I'm doing and asking me questions about bugs and how to cast a fly rod like that. I didn't know who he was, but that's pretty cool. And so that's been actually a really cool thing. A couple years ago, I went to trout camp, and that was an amazing experience. And I got to do an article for Dun Magazine, which is a women's fly fishing magazine for those who don't know. It's a great magazine. It talks about anything and everything just with women in fly fishing. And so trout camp is also like another big thing that I want to touch on. I absolutely encourage anyone who is my age. I believe you have to be 12, and I think the oldest they'll take is 17, I believe. Oh, 16 maybe. I don't know. I'm not really sure. I'm being told different ages. I'm not 100% sure. But if you Google it, trout camp, please do. It's a Trout Unlimited camp, and it's amazing. I went when I was 13, and we spent the week. Mine was in Tremont and the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. And, you know, I spent the week snorkeling. We talked about water quality. We tied a fly every night. That was a really cool thing. We learned a different fly every night. And we actually had this guy who's like, I can't remember his title, but his job was basically to photograph different bugs, and it was really cool. He came in and he brought us a whole bunch of different bugs, and we compared them to what flies we were tying, and so we could figure out what we were mimicking, and that was a really cool thing. And you know, a lot of that camp was, I absolutely have grown up in fly fishing, and it is a big part of my life. Fly fishing is not my passion, and I had a fantastic time. I met some amazing people, and I still have a good couple of friends from that group. I was one of 4 girls, which it doesn't sound like a lot, but we were actually the biggest group of girls to be at a trout camp, at least in our chapter, our Tremont camp in Tennessee. Yeah. And so there were 14 kids and 4 girls and 10 boys. And it was a lot of fun. The 4 of us girls had one tent together. And it was really funny because I'm the only one who out of those girls who had grown up in the park. And, you know, I'm familiar with the bugs. I'm familiar with the trout. I like to touch the fish. I like to touch the bugs. I like to mess with the plants. And of course, camping in the middle of our park, there were so many bugs in our tent. And the other girls were freaking out. They did not like it. And the boys picked up on it. And so they definitely thought, they're like, ooh, this is a great opportunity for some great pranks, you know, whatever. And there was one time that they found these beetles and they were throwing them at this one other girl, and she freaked out, and then they threw it at me, and I caught it and I started playing with it. And they were just like, well, come on. So there's definitely been some really fun experiences just all around with growing up in fly fishing, 100%. And I think of other things I can see. I'm looking at my notes.
We have a question for you, Willow.
Excellent.
What's the first time you remember fly fishing?
Ooh, so that is like asking what's my earliest childhood memory, honestly, because there's like so many.
How
Um,
do you remember?
I mean, I guess actually fishing, I have a lot of like bits and pieces memories. I'll tell you one that I can actually give you a complete story around. How about that is what I'll do. So I think I was 5 or 6. Me and my dad went on this backpacking trip, and that wasn't at all like the first trout I had caught. But on our way back from our backpacking trip, we were walking and we stopped, and my dad was showing me how to cast into like this one slot. And he got up to like, I think, go get back, like lunch out of his backpack or something. While he was gone, I kept on casting and I caught a fish. And that was more or less, I don't think it was my first completely unassisted, but for my age, it was pretty independent and a pretty big, it's the first I remember. It wasn't my first, but it is the first independent fish that I caught that I remember. So.
Thank you. From Carol, what she asks, what steps would you suggest to interest high school students to create and join a fly fishing club from scratch?
Ooh, so I definitely think the best way to go about that is, and I mean, this might not be the best way in everybody else's eyes, but personally, just my idea 100% is honestly to not even make it all about fly fishing. That can be your ultimate goal, but make your meetings outside, make your meetings a picnic, make sure that at least a couple of those kids are maybe a little bit tight-knit. I've usually found that just if not everybody is really comfortable with each other, then that can really not go very well. But if you have at least 2 friends that are pretty close, and then they both love being outside, and then they get other kids that love to be outside, quick enough, like it'll be slow at first, but one of them will be like, oh, did you ever see like this type of bug? And like be trying to show them and teach them about what they know and, you know, how they learned about it and all that type of stuff. Because, I mean, teenagers are pretty braggy people. I mean, we want to tell everybody what we know, and that's just like a thing. But like, it'll spark a friendship and it'll be great. It'll go on. That would be
Thank
my
you.
suggestion. Yeah.
And Brad asks, Willow, how many trout conservation survey trips with the rangers have you been involved with? That's the first part of his question. What type of trout and what were they looking for? And you told us a story this afternoon
Yeah.
about clipping for DNA samples. And
Yes.
you can tell that story or not, but
Absolutely. Yeah.
okay.
So how many?
How many trips? Yep.
But I have absolutely no idea. There have been plenty, many. I have no idea, but a whole bunch. And yeah, so one that we've done that was actually a really amazing thing that I'll always remember was one that I did when I was 9. And so it was a brook trout restoration project. And so what we were doing is that we were just moving, I think a couple hundred, it was like 400 trout is what I believe it was. 400 brook trout from one part of the park into another. And 50 of those 400 we were taking DNA samples of, and I actually got to help with the DNA sampling. So what we did was their adipose fin, which, I mean, it's very hard to notice. There's the dorsal, and then very back farther towards the tail, it's like an itty bitty fin, and it's it doesn't hurt them at all. We clipped the fin and it's like clipping a toenail. It doesn't grow back, but it doesn't hurt them and it doesn't affect them. And so what I did was I helped take the fins like with tweezers and put them in these little vials. And we did those on 50 fish, I believe I said that. And then we moved the fish from the one spot and we took it down another spot. We hiked in and it was crazy. It was like we had these big, like, I'm sure they weren't trash bags, but it's like almost like big old trash bags of fish. And we set the bags in the water. It's like almost when you buy a goldfish and you have like the bags of water, you just have to set it in the tank for a little bit. But it was like, imagine that, but with like 100 fish in a bag. And so we had these brook trout and we released them. And that one area wasn't open to fishing for another couple years, I believe. I think it was another year or so. So the year passes and me and my dad and my brother are all hiking together. And so we were up in that area and Dad's like, oh, do you want to fish? And I was like, well, yeah, I guess so. I'm in the mood for it. I'll do it. And so I fished for a little bit and the first fish I catch is a brook trout missing its adipose fin in that area. And it was amazing. I just knew that it was a fish that I had held before and that I helped take it there. And it was amazing. And so that's definitely been one of the biggest memories I've had from working with the fisheries biologists in the park.
Thank you, Willow. We did have a question. Somebody said, I can look and see, Ann Miller. She said, if fly fishing is not your passion, because it sure seems like it is, what is your passion?
Well, okay, so I've been playing guitar since I was about 5 years old, and guitar and music has always been my absolute love. I've been playing guitar for very long. I've been in choir since 6th grade. I'm a sophomore in high school now. I've done elite choirs for, I guess this would be my 3rd year of being in one. Music is my absolute passion. I love to read and write. I plan on doing some sort of writing job when I'm older. I absolutely love history and I love writing, so I'm actually thinking about some form of journalism.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And your passion is contagious. It really is.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that with us. So we've gone over an hour, but people are hanging on, and so I still would like to open it up for those that would like to ask questions. Fanny, you had another question. Let's see. Sally asked, Fanny, have you noticed a change in men's attitudes towards female fly fishers over the years?
Yes, I have. I think that at the very first, men were not very happy to have competitors, women competitors. But when they have voiced that, when they saw that we knew what we were doing, that we could do it without having to bug them to do this for us or do that for us, that we could stand on our own 2 feet and were almost just as capable as they were. There was a lot of, I don't want to say admiration, but certainly they recognized that we were there to stay, and that we could even be good company for them. And that has made a difference. And the fact that they could accept us and enjoy our company, and that we could enjoy their company, I think it's made the sport a lot more human than if we were 2 separate groups fighting each other.
Thank you for that. We had a question. Do any of you have any funny stories or mistakes you've made while fishing? Leanne, you haven't, I'm putting you on the hot seat. The certified casting instructor certainly has never.
Never. No. I've made a lot of mistakes. Usually they're when I'm tired, but when I remember was when I was a kid. In particular, my brothers and I had floated down the river with a raft, and we got out and it was cold and it was a rubber raft, and we thought for some bright idea, we thought it'd be a good idea to start a fire and then hold the raft over the fire to keep the heat in. Just like,
Oh
so we ended up burning a hole in our drift boat raft. And, my dad was not very happy when he came to pick us up. So that's one that's really vivid in my mind. But of course, I still make mistakes all the time.
We all do.
Things.
We all do. Even at 91, you make mistakes. And then you said, oh, I know better. I should know better than that. I shouldn't be doing that. But you do it. It's
Yeah.
okay.
It's okay to make mistakes.
Yeah, okay. That's how you learn anyway.
And it's what makes it fun. It's what makes it.
It does. It does.
So that wraps up this evening. I want to mention our next webinar on February 8th is going to be Kelsey Gallagher, and she's going to talk about starting from a novice all the way up to a professional casting, her story. And so we ask you to join us then. Really appreciate you ladies coming on tonight and sharing your story with us. And if you have any questions, if you need to follow up, please let us know at womenconnect@flyfishersinternational.org or ask us on Facebook. I know you all would be happy to open your hearts and answer questions. So we'll close it. Thank you again. And tight lines, everyone. We'll see you on the water.
Thank you.
Yes.
Good night. Stay healthy.
You as well.
Okay, you too.